All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Trying something a little bit different with sounds. I have my earbuds in, as that was kind of a request. So hopefully you guys can hear me better. You can email me or I think comment if you can. Let me know how that works out. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Just in a seated position, just any comfortable seat is fine. Go ahead and rest your hands on your knees, closing down those eyes, just sitting up nice and tall. Just breathing in and out through your nose. Taking that really big breath in. And exhale, open the mouth, sigh it out. Again, big breath in. And sigh it out. Good, one more time. Big breath in. Breathe in as much air as you can. Sit up a little bit taller. And exhale it out. Okay, now close down the mouth. We're going to continue that same breath. So that really big breath in. And then still making that sighing sound as you breathe out through the nose. You're really hearing that breath on the inhale and hearing that breath on the exhale. Focusing on that sound of the breath, letting everything else go. Now inhale, we'll reach those arms up overhead, reach up as tall as you can. Now exhale, we're gonna twist it over to that right side. So bring that left hand just across that knee, sit up really tall on that inhale, and exhale a little deeper into that twist. Good, inhale, we'll bring it back to center, reach it up nice and tall. Exhale, we'll twist it over to that other side again. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale a little deeper into that twist. Good, inhale, bring it back to center, reach the arms up. We'll lower that right hand down, left arm reaches up as we sign that side bend. Just gaze up underneath that arm. Good, inhale, we'll bring it back up to the other side. Just go ahead and lower that left arm down, right arm reaches up and over as we side stretch. And then inhale, we'll reach those arms up, draw those elbows down. We're gonna interlace those fingers behind the back. So draw those knuckles down, open up through that chest and bring those hands away from the hips. Good, another big breath in. Exhale, reaching those hands back, maybe a little bit more. And release those arms up overhead. Good, exhaling, bring those hands down to the mat. We're gonna come onto those hands and knees in that tabletop position. So bring those hands just right underneath the shoulders. Knees are right underneath the hips. So we're gonna move through those cat-cows. So on that inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest, lift the tailbone as we look up. But exhale, we'll round the spine, draw the belly in as we press the shoulder blades away from each other. Good, inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest, lift the tailbone as we look up. Exhale, round. Good, inhale, lift and lengthen. Good, exhale, round. Good, one more time. Inhale, lift the chest, lift the tailbone. Really pull those shoulders down away from the ears, lengthen out through the neck. And exhale, round. And now with that rounded spine, just go ahead and press those hips back to that tailbone. A little stretch through those shoulders. You can keep those arms right where they're at. And then come back on to hands and knees. Drop the belly, lift the chest, gaze up. Exhale, round as we send those hips back. And inhale, round that spine as we bring it back up. Then drop the belly, lift the chest. Good. Then round that spine, bringing those hips back to the heels as we soften that forehead down to the mat. You can slide those knees maybe a little bit wider. Maybe they touch the outer corners of the mat as we soften that head down. Good, now we'll lift up slightly, just walking those hands over to that right side. Really big reach through that left arm, pressing that left hip down and back as we soften that head down. Good, now walk those hands back to center and then go all the way over to that left side of the mat. So big reach through that right arm, pressing that right hip down and back. Soften that head down. And then we'll walk those hands back to center, come back up onto those hands and knees. We're gonna step those feet right back to a plank. Okay, so you can start in that plank position, and if you need to, just go ahead and lower those knees down onto the mat. So Sam's not in that tabletop position anymore. Those hips are pressing forward, so I'm getting a little bit more engagement through the core. So if you need a little modification, that's fine. If you want a little bit more challenge, warming up the body, just you're right in this plank, really squeezing those legs, those glutes, that core. And we'll breathe it for 5, 4, 3, 2, good, and 1. Sending those hips up to the sky into that downward facing dog. So you can bring a slight bend or even a big bend into those knees as we pedal those feet out. So just bending one knee as we press that opposite heel down to the mat. Now bringing those legs still. We're going to inhale on the toes. Bend into those knees as we look forward, stepping those feet all the way up to the top of the mat. Inhale, sliding the hands up the shins into that half lift. And exhale, we'll slide those hands down as we fold. Good, inhale, bend into those knees, flatten out that back. We're gonna rise all the way up to standing, reach it up nice and tall. Then exhaling those hands to heart center. Then we'll reach those arms back up. We're gonna bend into your right elbow. So that left hand just comes back, reaches forward, pressing that head back. So as we press the head back, don't try and arch back. Keep that rib cage nice and tight and to just literally press to the head. So we'll get a little bit more stretch through that tricep. And then we'll find a slight bend over to that left side. Good, bring it back to center, switching sides, reach those arms up. We're gonna bend into that left arm. Okay, so press the head back, sitting nice and tall. And we'll bend it over to your right side. Bring it back to center, reaching those arms up nice and tall. And exhale, fold it forward. Finding that flat back on the inhale. And exhale, slide those hands down as we fold. We can hang out here for a couple breaths. And maybe finding some gentle sways from side to side. If you want to grab on to opposite elbows, really let that head hang heavy, you can. And now release those elbows, bend to the knees, rise all the way up to standing, reach it up nice and tall. Get bending into that right elbow, press the head back and side stretch. And bring it back to center, reach those arms up, going to the other side. So bending into that left elbow and then side bend. Good, inhale, bring it back to center, reach both arms up and exhale, fold. Finding that flat back on the inhale and exhale, slide the hands back down. You can breathe it here for another 3 breaths. Okay, bend into the knees, flatten out that back, rise up to standing, reach it up tall. Again, last time through, we're gonna bend into that right elbow and then side bend. Inhale it back up, switching sides, press the head back, rib cage down and bend. Inhale, reach it back up and exhale, fold it forward. Finding that flat back on the inhale and exhale. This time we're gonna plant those hands down as we step those feet back to our plank. So again, I want those fingertips right underneath the shoulders, and you can lower those knees down if you would like, as we lower all the way down onto our stomach. Point those toes, roll the shoulders down and back as we lift up into that cobra, or maybe press all the way up into that upward facing dog. And then exhale, curl those toes under, sending those hips back to the sky, downward facing dog. Good, now inhale on the toes, bend into those knees, stepping those feet to the top of the mat, bringing those toes together to touch. We're gonna inhale, rise all the way up to standing, reach it up nice and tall, and then exhale, we'll just drop those hips down to the ground. So just starting to feel those leg muscles waking up a little bit, core is nice and tight as we sink those hips down as low as we can. Sink a little deeper, breathing. Good, now bring the hands to heart center. Weight's gonna be on that right leg. We're gonna lift the left leg up. Think of a little curtsy. So we're just gonna bring that left foot behind the right leg a little bit. Little squat down, okay? Bring it back up, drawing that knee into the chest. So core is nice and tight. Good, breathing here. Find a little bit of balance. Good, now lower that foot down, reaching those arms back up into that squat. Okay, now bring the hands to heart center. Right leg lifts, bring that foot just so maybe a foot behind. So the knee is kind of right by the calf. Squat it down, then rise back up, bringing that knee to the chest. Core is nice and tight. Good, now lower that foot down, reaching those arms up. We're gonna add a little twist here. So right arm is gonna reach back, left arm reaches forward. Good, inhale it back up to the other side. We're gonna reach that left hand back, right arm reaches forward. Then inhaling those arms up, sinking those hips down to that chair. Bringing those hands to heart center as we slide that left leg under into that little curtsy squat. Bring that knee back to the chest. And then here, a little bit more of a twist. Okay, if you're having a hard time balancing right here, just stay here. That's totally fine. Okay, if you want to take it up a notch, you can have a wall here even to help you cheat. Grab onto that knee with that right hand and then just twist it back, looking towards that left hand. Okay, just an option here. Do what works for you. Good, then bring it back to center, reaching those arms up, sinking those hips down to that chair. We'll go the other side. So we're gonna slide that, hands to heart center, slide that right leg back, little curtsy squat. Bring that knee to the chest. Okay. And then this left hand can grab onto that knee as you reach that arm back. But stay nice and tall. One more breath. And bring it back up. Lower that foot down, sink those hips down into that chair. And straighten those legs as we fold. A few more breaths. And then go ahead and plant those hands down as we step those feet back to our plank and shift the weight forward and lower it down. Inhale, lift. And exhaling those hips back to the sky, downward facing dog. Again, inhaling on the toes. Bend into those knees, stepping those feet up to the top of the mat. Half lift and fold. Rise to standing and sink those hips down to our chair. Bringing those hands to heart center, we do a little curtsy squat, sliding that left leg under as we bend into that knee. Now bring that knee right back up into that balancing pose. Again, maybe even twisting, right hand reaches for the knee, twist that left arm back. If you want to get really fancy with this and you want to grab onto that toe, extend it out, and twist, that's an option too, obviously a little bit more advanced. So if that's where you're at, great, go there. If you're not there, you don't have to. One more breath. Good, now from here, we're gonna bring it back up, reach those arms up, keep that knee lifted, and then slide that foot back. So we're gonna come into that warrior one. Okay, so right hip comes back, left hip comes forward, nice and strong through this back leg, pressing into that back heel. outside edge of the foot. So we're not collapsing in on that arch, okay? Good. Reaching those arms up, sink into that front knee maybe a little bit more. And then we'll interlace those fingers behind the back. Open up that chest. And then you can start to fold. So just hover that belly, maybe rib cage, inner thigh, maybe shoulder comes all the way down to that knee as we bend into that front knee a little bit more. And now release those hands as we rise back up into our warrior one. And then we'll bring those hands to heart center as we step those feet forward, sink it into that chair. Now we're gonna go to the other side. We're gonna slide that right leg back into that little curtsy squat. Now bring that knee to the chest and then twist. And if you wanna reach for that big toe, extend that leg out this way. You have that option. A couple more breaths. So we think about that left leg, really gripping those toes, balls of the feet, heels into the mat. Good, we'll bring it back to center, reaching those arms up, and then take that step back with our right leg. So grounding that heel down. The toes are turned out just a few degrees, so in that warrior one stance. Pull that left hip back, right hip's gonna come forward, rib cage draws down, and then reach those arms up overhead. Stay with that breath. And now we'll interlace those fingers behind the back. Big opening through that chest. And exhale, start to fold it forward. So maybe you hover, maybe rib cage comes to inner thigh, maybe shoulder comes all the way down to that knee. And then we'll release those hands as we rise back up. Good, stepping those feet to the top of the mat and straighten the legs as we fold. Find that flat back on the inhale. And exhale, we'll plant those hands down, stepping those feet back to our plank. Shift the weight forward, lower it down. Inhale, lift. And exhale, send those hips back, downward facing dog. And one more breath in, down dog. Now go ahead, step it through, or maybe even you hop it through to a seat. Go ahead and lean it back. So we're gonna be on our tailbone. The chest is lifted, back is nice and flat. Okay, you can start to lift those legs up. If you want to keep those arms by the sides, or maybe even grab onto the legs, you can, or toes down, legs up is also an option. Now, if you want a little bit more advanced, you can always try and straighten those legs. Hold that for as long as you can, breathing. We're gonna stay here for 5, 4, 3, 2, good. And one last thing, really warm up that core here. We're gonna extend it back down. So try and keep those shoulders lifted, legs lifted, holding it for 3, 2, good, and 1. Hug those knees in, hey, as we gently rock from side to side. And now lower those feet down. Walk those shoulder blades together. So we're lifting through the chest. Hey, keep that low back flat. Core is nice and tight. We're gonna press into those feet as we just lift the hips up first. Think about we're rotating that pelvis up towards the ceiling. Continuing to press as we roll up one vertebrae at a time. Squeezing those glutes, the hamstrings, gripping with those feet. Now, if you think about pressing your heels down and then pulling them back kind of towards your hips, you get a little bit more activation in the hamstrings and the glutes, and it takes a little bit more of that stress off of the low back. Lift the hips a little bit higher. And slowly roll it back down. Now from here, we're gonna cross that right ankle over that left thigh, flexing that right foot as we hug that knee in. So we're gonna grab on to our left hamstring. Or if you want a little bit more of a stretch, you can always grab on to the shin too. But one of the things, if you go to grab onto that shin and your hips end up being really high and you can feel those vertebrae digging into the spine, okay, kind of reset. Just release with your hands. Okay, find that spot where you can keep the hips down, the head down, and the chest lifted so the vertebrae are lifted off the mat. And then try and hug that knee and keeping that space. Okay, and that back is nice and flat. You'll, one, not only will it feel better on your vertebrae, but you'll get a better stretch through this right outer hip. So focusing on that full breath in, that slow and controlled exhale. And then go ahead and release that foot down. We're going to tee out those arms. We're going to drop the knees over to that right side. Okay, so make sure this left shoulder stays down. So if you notice that your knees are kind of up here and that shoulder is starting to lift and you're a little bit tight, that's okay. Stay there. As we hold this and breathe, maybe you can find that those knees soften down a little bit more. They don't even have to be touching the ground, okay? If they are, that's fine. But if they're hovering, that is okay too. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. Just kind of finding your limit this morning. And then go ahead and bring those knees back up. We're going to switch sides. Crossing that left ankle over, flexing that foot. Now remember, we want that chest lifted. Shoulder blades are flat on the mat. Tailbone is down. So even right now, my lumbar spine, this low back is lifted up off the mat. I can feel that space here. Okay. Now, as we bring the knees in, it'll flatten out to the ground. That's okay. We just don't want it rolling into that cat spine. We want that nice flat back. You're grabbing onto that hamstring, that right hamstring, or maybe that right shin. Whatever is accessible this morning. Really using the breath to soften those muscles of the hips, to relax, to release that tension. And then go ahead and release that foot down. Again, we'll re-tee out those arms and then drop the knees over to that right side. So again, we want that right shoulder staying down. Big breath in. And exhale, see if you can find a little more twist. And then bring those knees back to center. Go and uncross it as we hug the knees in. Start to rock yourself forward and back. We'll come all the way up into that seated position. I just pause it here for a few breaths. Again, just to close out this practice. And taking that big breath in. And exhale it out, just nice and slow. And 2 more times. Big breath in. And exhale. And 1 more time. Big breath in. And exhale. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all next week.